My opponent says we don't ever have fish with legs. Why aren't there any examples of fish with legs? Well, there are fish that do walk, and they do walk on land, and they walk on land right here in Florida, in fact, in Hillsborough County, Florida, and I've seen them walking. They're called walking catfish, and not only do they walk from lake to lake, they can stay out of the water for hours. My opponent brings up the second law of thermodynamics and says everything has to go from order to disorder. Well, I would remind you that when precipitation falls from the clouds and freezes, it oftentimes forms something called a snowflake, and that certainly does look mighty orderly to me. And I would also think that a chemist would know a little something about chemicals coming together in an orderly fashion. For instance, if I combine two hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom, we make something quite orderly called water. And how do crystals form in nature if that isn't going from disorder to order? We have many observations of this phenomena. And I would remind you that a law in science is not a rule. It's an observation, and it's a descriptive observation. And that's all it is. Mathematical chances of something happen. What do you think the chances are that I could produce a student on this campus out of just 1,024 students who could flip heads on a coin 10 times in a row without a miss and do it on the first try? Well, that sounds really astronomical, doesn't it? And if I want to employ flim-flam, I could really make you think that's impossible. But the fact is I can do that, because if I assemble 1,024 and we start off with the elimination process and we flip the coin, half of those people are going to come up with heads. That leaves 512. Well, I'll say that they flip the same side of the coin 10 times in a row, not necessarily heads. Well, half of them will flip heads. And we use those half to flip the coin, and another half of those will come up with heads. Now we're down to 256. Flip again, we get down to 128. Flip again, we get down to 64. Flip again, we're down to 32. Flip again, we're down to 16. Flip again, we're down to 8. Flip again, we're down to 4. Flip again, we're down to 2. And bingo, I have a student who's flipped a coin 10 times in a row and come up with the same side of the coin 10 times in a row on one try. Things are not as impossible as some people would like to make them seem. Who speaks for the scientific community? The National Academy of Sciences. Upon authority of the charter granted to it by the Congress in 1863, the Academy has a mandate that requires it to advise the federal government on scientific and technical matters. What misinformation is used to attack evolution? Well, creation would have us believe that the scientific community is divided over the question of whether evolution is fact. Well, here's what the National Academy says in this book. While the mechanisms of evolution are still under investigation, scientists universally accept that the cosmos, our planet, and life evolved and continue to evolve. The National Academy of Sciences states unequivocally that creationism has no place in any science curriculum at any level. That a handful of religious fundamentalists hold a PhD in science is insufficient to conclude that there is a divided scientific community. There is no hostility to evolution among the secular members of the scientific community. Hostility to evolution is reserved with those with a monotheistic agenda. Thus, the only real division that exists is a division between the scientific community and the religious fundamentalist community. I'd like to correct my opponent who has a PhD in chemistry. He said that the smallest particle that you can have while retaining the properties of aluminum are the atom, and that is not true. I don't have a PhD in chemistry or science, and I know that the proper word to describe that is the word element.